They say the walls of Bhangarh remember. Every stone, every broken archway, every wind that passes through its empty corridors carries whispers of the dead. Once a majestic kingdom beneath the Aravali hills, it now stands as a warning, a place where the sun itself fears to set. Long ago, before the desert crept close and swallowed the land in dust, Bhangarh was alive. Laughter echoed through its courtyards, music danced under the moonlight, and the scent of jasmine drifted from the queen's garden. But beauty, as always, is fragile, and in Bhangarh, beauty turned into a curse. Legend says there was a princess, Ratnavati, known across Rajasthan for her unmatched grace. Every king and warrior dreamed of her hand, yet her heart belonged to none. But among those who desired her was one who should never have, a man named Singya, a tantric sorcerer who lived deep in the forest, surrounded by skulls and shadows. He was powerful. He could bend wind and whisper to fire. Yet when he saw the princess, his dark heart trembled. He wanted her, not her love, but her soul. One day, as Ratnavati's maids went to the market, Singya followed them, his eyes burning like dying coals. He saw the princess choose a bottle of perfume, a delicate oil meant for her hair. In secret, he cast a spell on it, whispering words older than time, believing that whoever wore it would be bound to him forever. But fate does not favor evil. The princess, sensing something wrong, threw the bottle to the ground. It shattered, and the cursed oil seeped into the earth. In that instant, the spell turned on its master. The stones trembled. Singya screamed as the magic tore his body apart. His last words, a curse that would stain Bhangarh for eternity. He swore that no soul would ever know peace within those walls, that the city would fall and its people would vanish into shadows. Not long after, war came. The skies burned red, and the palace that once shone like gold was drowned in blood. Bodies lay where music once played. The queen's chambers turned to ash, and when dawn rose again, Bhangarh was silent. For centuries, no one dared to rebuild it. Even today, as the sun dips behind the Aravalis, the villagers lock their doors. They say after sunset, the fort belongs to them, the cursed, the forgotten, the unseen. Travelers who wander too far inside at night never return. Some say they hear footsteps behind them. Others hear a woman's soft laughter, beautiful and cold. And if you listen closely, the wind carries her name, Ratnavati. Night descends on Bhangarh like a living creature, slow, deliberate, breathing through the ruins. When the last ray of sunlight slips beyond the hills, the fort changes. The air thickens. The silence hums. Even the crickets grow quiet, as if something ancient has awakened. Generations after the fall of the city, the world had almost forgotten Bhangarh's name. Almost, but not entirely. For some, whispers of gold and lost glory are stronger than fear. Among them was Arjun Mehta, a young archaeologist from Jaipur. He believed in history, not hauntings. To him, every legend was a half-truth waiting to be unearthed. When the government granted permission for limited exploration inside the fort, Arjun volunteered first. He arrived one hazy afternoon with 3 companions, his assistant Kavya, historian Dr. Rao, and a local guide named Gopal. The villagers stood far behind the iron gate, refusing to cross. One of them shouted a warning, "Leave before the sun goes, the fort doesn't forgive." Arjun smiled politely, dismissing the superstition. He stepped through the ancient archway, and for a moment, it felt as if the air itself was holding its breath. Inside, the fort looked timeless, a skeleton of stone and sand. Broken walls leaned like tired sentinels. Bats hung from dark ceilings. and through every crack, the wind whispered secrets no one wanted to hear. As they set up camp near the old temple, Gopal refused to enter. He muttered prayers under his breath, eyes darting toward the shadows. When night finally fell, the others gathered their equipment, cameras, recorders, and lanterns, ready to map what centuries had hidden. The first sign came softly. Kavya heard a woman humming, faint, melodic, drifting from somewhere deep within the palace ruins. She turned to Arjun. "Do you hear that?" He shook his head. "Just the wind." But Dr. Rao paused. His face went pale. "That song," he whispered, "it's in the old manuscripts, the lullaby of Ratnavati." They followed the sound through a collapsed corridor. Their lights flickered against the stone walls, illuminating faded murals, women dancing, a man cloaked in black, a serpent coiling at his feet. The air smelled of burnt jasmine. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through, extinguishing their lamps. Darkness swallowed them whole. In that instant, Arjun felt a hand, cold, soft, and trembling, brush against his arm. He spun around. No one was there. Kavya screamed. Her flashlight clicked back on, and the beam landed on a mirror, tall, cracked, and ancient. In the reflection, for a heartbeat, they saw her. A woman in royal attire, eyes black as obsidian, standing behind them. Then she was gone. They ran back to the camp, hearts pounding, breath ragged. Gopal was waiting outside the gate, shaking his head. "I warned you," he muttered. "She doesn't like visitors." But Arjun wasn't ready to leave. His curiosity had turned into obsession. He spent the next morning mapping the layout, tracing the murals, noting the inscriptions. Every line spoke of power, betrayal, and forbidden love. By evening, he discovered something strange near the main courtyard. A half-buried stone tablet carved with an unfamiliar symbol. It looked like a sun eclipsed by a serpent. Dr. Rao's eyes widened. "That's a tantric seal," he said. "It's a binding spell." A chill ran through Arjun. "Binding what?" he asked. Rao looked toward the palace. "Not what, Arjun? Who?" As the second night approached, a sandstorm began to rise. The wind howled through the ruins, and the fort moaned like a living beast. Gopal begged them to leave, but Arjun refused. He wanted answers. When the storm hit, they took shelter inside the temple. Lightning flashed across the hills, and thunder shook the ground. Between the roars, they heard whispers, hundreds of voices murmuring in the dark. Some wept, some called names they didn't know. And through it all, one voice rose above the rest, soft, sorrowful, and commanding. "Why did you return?" it asked. The torches flared, burning blue. The air turned freezing cold. And from the shadowed doorway, the outline of a woman appeared, her veil fluttering in a wind that no one felt. Ratnavati. Her eyes glowed faintly, like embers beneath ice. She stepped forward, her voice breaking between grief and fury. This place was never meant for the living. The storm outside raged harder. The temple door slammed shut. Kavya clutched Arjun's arm, trembling. Dr. Rao fell to his knees, chanting prayers. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The wind, the light, the whispers. Silence swallowed the world. When dawn finally came, the villagers found the fort empty. Only Gopal remained outside, still sitting near the gate, eyes wide open, frozen in terror. The others were gone. All that remained was a cracked camera, its lens pointed toward the temple. And on the last frame of the video, a single reflection in the mirror. 4 figures standing together, and behind them, the faint outline of a woman smiling. For 3 days, Bhangarh lay silent again. The villagers said the fort had claimed what it wanted and returned to sleep. But stories have a way of bleeding through time, and some souls never rest. Weeks later, in Jaipur, the archaeological department received a parcel. No sender, no return address. Inside was Arjun Mehta's notebook. The pages were stained with sand, half torn, half burnt. Yet the words that remained were enough to awaken new fear. "She is real," the first line read. "The curse breathes beneath the stones. We have broken the seal." The report reached Dr. Ira Kapoor, a historian known for solving ancient mysteries. Where others saw myths, she saw codes. When she read Arjun's final notes, she felt a pull she couldn't explain, an urge to finish what he started. Within a week, Ira assembled a small team: her assistant Nikhil, camera operator Rehan, and a priest named Swami Haridas, who agreed to accompany them only under one condition: they would leave before sunset, no matter what they found. The road to Bhangarh wound through empty villages and cracked earth. Even at noon, the lights seemed dull, as if the sun itself feared to touch the ruins. At the gate, Ira paused. A warning board read in red letters, "No entry after sunset." She smiled faintly. "Superstition," she whispered. But Swami Haridas shook his head. "Not superstition," he said, "survival." They crossed the threshold. A sudden chill passed through them, one that had nothing to do with the weather. The fort stood vast and hollow, its corridors whispering with invisible breath. Birds circled high above but never landed. Somewhere in the distance, a faint hum drifted through the wind, soft, rhythmic, like someone chanting underwater. They followed it. Inside what once was the royal bathhouse, they discovered symbols etched freshly into the walls, the same serpent sun mark Arjun had described. Ira brushed her fingers over the carvings. "They're recent," she murmured. "Someone's been here." Rehan adjusted his camera, filming everything, unaware that behind him, a shadow moved against the far wall, longer than any human form. At the heart of the fort lay the queen's chambers, still intact, the ceiling glittering faintly with crushed mica. A broken mirror leaned in the corner. Ira stepped closer. The glass shimmered once, showing not her face, but another, pale, veiled, smiling faintly. Then the image shattered into ripples and was gone. Rehan caught it on camera, his breath shaking. "Did you see that?" Ira nodded slowly. "She's watching us." By evening, the sky turned blood red. The team began to pack, but Ira refused to leave. "We're close," she said. "I can feel it." Swami Haridas warned her. "The boundary between worlds weakens when the sun dies. Cross it, and you will not find your way back." But she didn't listen. As dusk swallowed the hills, a low vibration spread through the ground. Their lanterns flickered, then steadied, burning with a faint blue flame. From every corner, whispers rose. First one voice, then many. They spoke in Rajasthani, so old that even Haridas could barely understand. But one phrase was clear: "The seal is broken." Suddenly, the earth beneath them cracked open, revealing a hollow chamber. Dust and smoke rose, carrying a scent of jasmine and decay. They climbed down carefully, their lights trembling. At the center of the chamber stood a stone platform. Upon it, the remnants of a shattered urn. Inside the urn, half buried in ash, was a small vial of blackened oil. Ratnavati's perfume. Ira lifted it gently. The glass was warm. It pulsed faintly, as if alive. She heard a whisper close to her ear. "He cursed me, but you will set me free." A scream cut through the dark. Rehan dropped his camera. The lens cracked as it hit the ground. When Ira turned, Nickel was gone. Only his bag remained, lying beside a trail of footprints leading deeper into the earth. They followed the prince through a narrow tunnel until it opened into a vast underground hall. Torches burned on their own along the walls, though no one had lit them. At the far end stood a throne carved from obsidian, and upon it, a figure draped in shadow. A woman's voice filled the hall, calm yet thunderous. "You broke the seal," she said. "Now you must bear its cost." Ira stepped forward. "Princess Ratnavati?" The figure rose. Her veil fell away, revealing eyes that glowed with trapped sorrow. Once I was Ratnavati, now I am what remains of her curse. Wind screamed through the hall, and sand poured from the ceiling like rain. Swami Haridas began chanting mantras, the sacred syllables echoing off the walls. But the spirit's laughter drowned them out. "You think your words can silence centuries of pain?" she hissed. "My soul was bound to this place by his spell. Only when the world remembers me not as a ghost, but as the woman I was, will I be free." The chamber shook violently. The oil vial shattered, releasing a thick black mist that wrapped around them. Ira felt her vision blur. Images flashed before her, armies clashing, fires consuming the palace, Singya screaming as his spell turned against him, and Ratnavati reaching out, her face torn between love and hatred. Then, silence. When Ira opened her eyes, she was outside the fort. The sun was rising. Rehan and Swami Haridas were beside her, both unconscious but breathing. Nickel was gone. The fort stood behind them, quiet as ever, as if nothing had happened. But Ira knew better. She looked down at her hands. Traces of black oil still clung to her skin. And faintly, from somewhere inside the ruins, she heard a whisper. Gentle, sorrowful, eternal. It has begun again. Morning came to Bhangarh, but it did not bring peace. The first rays of sunlight touched the fort like hesitant fingers, unsure whether the place still belonged to the living. Ira stood before the ancient gate, eyes hollow, heart beating with a rhythm not entirely her own. The wind was still, yet the air felt alive, pulsing, watching, waiting. For days afterward, she tried to forget. Back in Jaipur, the footage Rehan recorded refused to play. Every file turned to static, every frame burned white. Yet one image remained clear: the mirror inside the queen's chamber. In its reflection, the outline of Ratnavati stood exactly where Ira had been. At night, Ira dreamt of the fort. She walked through its corridors, barefoot on cold stone. 1,000 voices whispered behind her, begging, warning, pleading. And always, at the end of the dream, the princess appeared, eyes bright, hand outstretched, asking for release. The more Ira tried to ignore it, the louder the whispers became. She could hear them even when awake, faintly beneath the hum of the city. She began to draw symbols in her sleep, the same serpent and sun that bound the curse centuries ago. Each morning, she woke with sand beneath her nails. Rehan noticed first. "You haven't left your apartment in days," he said. She didn't answer. Her gaze was distant, fixed on something only she could see. The call of Bhangarh had returned, and this time it would not be denied. 2 nights later, without a word, Ira drove back to the fort. The roads were empty, the moon full and colorless. When she reached the gates, the sign that once warned no entry after sunset lay shattered on the ground. The iron doors creaked open on their own, as if expecting her. Inside, the fort glowed faintly under moonlight. The air was colder than before, heavy, almost wet with the breath of the past. She walked toward the temple, the same place where Arjun had vanished. Each step echoed like a heartbeat. When she reached the courtyard, the wind began to rise, swirling dust around her feet. The mirror stood waiting. Its surface rippled like water, though no hand touched it. In it, she saw herself, and behind her, the princess, dressed in royal silk, eyes glimmering with sorrow. A whisper drifted through the air. "End it, before the curse consumes you, too." The ground trembled. From the cracks, black smoke coiled upward, taking shape, a figure tall and hollow-eyed. It was Sinya, the sorcerer, his form bound by centuries of hatred. His voice came like thunder through bone. "She belongs to me, and now
So do you. The wind howled, lightning tore across the sky. Ira felt her body weaken as invisible hands pulled her toward the mirror. But deep within, another force awoke, the voice of Ratnavati, calm yet fierce. Break the cycle, it said. Use the light. Summoning every fragment of strength left in her, Ira raised her hands. The mirror shattered, and from its heart burst a blinding white fire, pure, ancient, alive. It swept through the ruins, tearing the shadows apart, burning the curse to ash. Singya's scream echoed across the hills, fading into the wind until nothing remained but silence. When dawn broke, Bhangarh was different. The air was still heavy, but it no longer stank of fear. Birds returned, timid but free. Sunlight spilled across the stones that had not felt warmth for centuries. Ira awoke near the temple steps, weak but alive. The mirror lay in shards beside her, each piece reflecting not ghosts, but light. In the center of the courtyard, the sand had formed a perfect circle, untouched by the storm. Inside that circle bloomed a single jasmine flower. She smiled faintly. Ratnavati was free. As Ira left the fort, she looked back one last time. The wind stirred gently, carrying a whisper, soft, grateful, eternal. Thank you. Then, silence again. Not the haunted silence of fear, but the calm after redemption. The fort, for the first time in 400 years, slept in peace. But legends never die completely. They only wait. And somewhere, deep beneath the ruins, a faint heartbeat still echoed, waiting for another soul to listen.